share screen.
Or just down at the bottom, it's a show video. Let's see here.
Start video.
Yeah, start video. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
There I am.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
Good. So you got your roof fixed? Fortunately,
Yeah,
that was simple, huh?
it turned out to be really simple. I mean,
Oh,
it's and obvious and a big relief because up here, if your roof leaks, you're in deep, you know what.
oh, oh, does it rain there?
A little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we were really, it turned out to be there's, you know how the bathrooms have the vent pipes, those black vent pipes that come up,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Uh-huh.
and there's two of them. There's two. One bathroom has a common vent pipe, and the other bathroom has its own vent pipe. And there's like a rubber boot that goes over them to keep the rain from going down the pipe. Well,
Yeah.
they had sort of deteriorated up at the top of the boot and frayed open, so all the water was coming down the pipe. So it was a really easy fix and
Oh
really
wow. Oh,
awesome.
cool. Okay. Oh
Yeah.
cool.
So
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had visions of getting up in the middle of the night with a tarp and somehow in a 40
Yeah.
mile an hour wind trying to put a tarp on the roof. I mean, it was a
Uh-huh.
nightmare for a short time, but
Yeah.
we're okay. Yeah, it turned out to be nothing.
Yeah, putting a tarp up there would be like cell surfing, and you get flying off the house. The winds.
I shouldn't even be up on a roof at my age anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
if I still do stuff myself, if I can handle it.
Yeah.
Um, but
Uh-huh.
I don't like it. I don't like heights.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise. Yeah. I remember that I tell you a story about Craig Perkins. We went to uh, what's the name there? There's some park near Riverside Mountains where it's a forest. And anyway, there's this. You walk along this one ledge. It's probably maybe about 2 feet wide, and
Yeah.
it's on a cliff. And we had our backpacks on. So John and we gingerly walked across. I'm saying real carefully.
Sure.
Well, Craig, with his backpack on, he was singing "Tip Top to the Tulips," and he would go on the cliff, and he would put one foot over the cliff, and then the other, and then the other. He was doing a dance, tiptoe to the tulips, where John and I were basically scared blankless of just walking across the that path.
Well, I don't like, yeah, because anything can happen,
Yeah, yeah,
and and one little mistake and you're done.
yeah, yeah,
I don't like those kind of situations. I shy away from them.
yeah.
I always actually did even when I was young.
Oh,
I wasn't a daredevil that way.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. You could surf big waves, but you knew your limits, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I also knew because I spent, a winter in Hawaii, and I knew that in order to really ride big waves, I never had a desire to like ride giant waves like at Waimea because the wave doesn't look that good to me in the first place. I surf Sunset pretty big, but
Mhm.
that's a good wave. That's a quality wave. Um, but I also knew that it'd take a few seasons to really gain confidence. It's not something that you put yourself in, uh, in a really big situation right off the bat. You got to build up to it. And that was always
Mhm.
my philosophy. And
Yeah.
but the guys now, they have all their jet skis and inflatable vests, and so they take a lot more chances. We couldn't afford to do that, with no leashes, there's no lifeguards, no nothing.
Yeah,
You're on your own.
exactly. Yeah. If you got hurt, wow, it was almost like a slim chance for someone to come in and save you.
Well, I was in a situation once where nobody was going to save me, and
Yeah.
I would just I felt I was panicking. I started to panic as a big sunset. Was surfing at sort of backyards and took off or tried to get back out between backyards and inside, or not inside, what is it called, Sunset Point, and didn't quite make it out. Got my board taken away, and then the rip dragged me into the impact zone at sunset, and the waves get bigger as you get down towards Sunset Beach.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I was just getting pounded, and I didn't know if I was going to make it, but I felt like panicking. I started to get panicky. I was like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, if you panic, you're going to die. So at least if you don't panic, you got a chance. So that kind of calmed me down enough to get in. But there's nobody, nobody's going to help me. Nobody knew I was in that situation but me.
Right. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
well, so today I wanted to talk about, you saw the whole transformation, basically, surfing going from a counterculture, call it soul surfing, call it and the amateur. Back then, Corky Carroll, I remember seeing in Surfer Magazine, he won a TV set when he won like the U.S. Open, a TV set.
Right. Yeah, it was a color TV.
Right.
Even
colors.
Better.
And we go, wow, he won a color TV. So you witnessed all that transformation, where
I was sort of Newport. I think Newport Beach was really kind of ground zero for the whole commercial, the newer wave. There was the original like Gidget wave where Mickey Dora got all salty about all the Valley Kooks coming over and surfing Malibu. That was sort of the initial wave, and then that kind of died down, and then surfing became sort of looked at by most adults as kind of a low life enterprise, kind of a low life lazy pursuit, where people they just didn't want to work or go to school or anything, so they'd surf, and
yeah.
And also that and then in the late 60s, how the drug culture really got going, and a lot of us got into smoking a lot of pot. I mean, and it became associated with surfing, drug use and pot smoking anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Any kind of heavy drugs that really wouldn't work with surfing, because you got to be pretty healthy. So it really became sort of looked down on. And I didn't really know too many adults that were positive about the fact that, they didn't have a really positive view of surfing, The only one that I ever knew that as an adult that was really positive about surfing all the time was John Van Ornum's mom, Jean. She was wonderful.
Oh wow.
She was really, really stoked that we were surfing and enjoying it. And she was a forward thinker as far as understanding the value, and because she saw how happy it made her son John, and how fit and strong he was, and resourceful, and she really saw the value in it when a lot of adults just thought it was a dead end and just a means to avoid working, or a career.
Yeah.
I always really appreciated that. She had a connection with the people of the LA Times. I think it was 1976. There were some really big waves that came into Newport Point, and I was out surfing that afternoon, and this is kind of a one of those karmic experiences where I walked by this guy, he had a different, there's a lot of photographers on the beach, and I walked by this guy, and he had really a unique camera rig, you know, and I thought, I think that guy's from the press, because I'd never seen that type of camera rig before. And I went out and I got my first wave was a really big backside barrel, or all I did was drop in and turn, and the thing came over, and I got a big backside barrel. I didn't even have to do anything, just stand there.
Yeah.
And I kicked out, and I thought to myself, well, that got his attention. And
Yeah.
and so the next wave, I got a nice wave, and it wasn't as critical, and I'm bottom turning, and I thought, well, I'll just kind of spread my hands out a little bit, make it look a little more dramatic. And when I did that, I said to myself, there's your photo. And the next day I get a call early in the morning from Pat Hubble. And he goes, Nick, you're on the front page of the LA Times.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no way, Pat. You can't identify anybody for usually in those photos. So
Yeah.
I went out and got the paper, and sure enough, I was there, big front page, middle of above the fold picture, and it's that moment where I said, "There's your picture."
Oh my gosh! Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow! Do you still have that picture? Do you
Of
save
course.
it?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, send it to me sometime.
I will.
Make a picture
Sure.
of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it's just interesting, how the mind, or just things work like that,
Yeah.
and where
Uh-huh.
you can't make it up. You can't. It's beyond, how we think we communicate. It's sort of a different. I don't know. I can't explain it other than I sort of telepathically told him when to take the
Yeah.
picture. In
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, isn't that an amazing? So you can be, it's in sync, and somehow, by being in sync, that photographer is looking in the ocean, and somehow there's a connection, that guy has. Take that picture now. He doesn't know why he's taking that picture now, but somehow, I'm trying to describe something which is hard to put in words. You'll understand synchronicity. Okay,
There
that's
you
the
go.
closest thing that
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
Synchronicity.
That's a good way to put it. Because I really can't. I can't explain it. And I can't. Other than it really happened, and there was something in play beyond how we think. The human mind operates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our knowledge of it, of our communication skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the term that Carl Jung came up with in the 30s. He was saying, basically, synchronicity is a series of events that happen to you, not by chance, but or by occurrence, but it's totally beyond your control. But it's an events that do occur, and you realize that it's an incredible event at the time.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, I don't know how I got on that subject.
Oh, we're talking about the 70s going
So no, let's get back to that's it's I was tying it back to John Van Ornum's mom.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So anyway, she gave me a couple of she had a connection with the LA Times and got me a couple of black and white prints of, like 8x10 prints of that shot from this guy.
Oh wow.
And he gave them to me, and I was like, yeah, I was like, we're such a nice thing to do, and so she always had a really positive attitude and view towards surfing, which
Wow.
and I'll never forget it because she was rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's it. Wow. You know, I hardly ever. I don't think I ever spoken to John. Do you know that? I don't think our paths ever crossed. Only a couple times. I remember once John and I we came to visit you. I forgot, you know, where we were. This is somewhere in the 70s, and after our journeys, and you're going to go play tennis, you know, with
Oh, yeah.
with John, and and I have a feeling, you know, that day you're playing tennis. My intuition tells me now you could have been playing tennis with Paul Sides.
I did play a lot with him.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, so
I
that
played. I played. He had a friend. He had a friend that was like a really good player from Estancia High School. I think. I think he was going out with his sister. I think that was the connection.
oh,
And
okay, okay.
and Paul was
Uh-huh.
actually Paul. I didn't realize Paul could actually play pretty damn good, and he got to be a pretty good player. And so you remember Max Lewison?
Yeah, I remember him. Yep, yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
Max and I would play all the time, and so Max and I would play Paul and his friend. I wish I could remember his friend's name. We would play them in doubles all the time, and it was really we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot.
Played them every week. It was great.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I really liked Paul. Paul turned out to be a really good guy.
Oh, you did. Oh, yeah, yeah. When I moved to Maui, he kind of took me underneath his wings and showed me, you know, where to paddle out in certain spots. He and introduced me to Jerry Lopez.
Oh
So,
wow.
you know, I spent time at you know Lopez's house and shaping. And we had a lot of, you know, Jerry knew I loved to meditate, and so did he. So we had a lot of interesting conversations, you know, about meditation, of him being in China, going to the Zen temples. Yeah, it was Paul was absolutely great. Yeah, they had about I guess about 500 people come to his funeral when he died. You know, all
Wow.
the surfers. He definitely had a lot of friends. You know, in the Maui community. Yeah, he definitely transformed. You know, definitely totally
Yeah,
transformed.
he totally changed.
Yeah.
He you know, and to his credit, he was really good friends with Jeff Timponi, you know, the shaper from
Oh yeah,
Russell.
Jeff. Yep, yep. I got introduced to Jeff. I never knew Jeff in the mainland, but I knew him in Maui. Yeah, so
He's a
uh,
great guy. I still have
yeah.
some of his boards. He, as a matter
Oh
of fact, when I was, uh, I had him shape me just as a keepsake. I had him shape me a three stringer, kind of a mini longboard, like a 7/4 uh, mini longboard.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Three stringer, light blue resin tint. It's a beautiful board, and I got it hanging up in the house. It's
Oh
just
wow.
it's
Uh-huh.
gorgeous. Yeah, because these guys are, you know, guys like Timponi, you know, they're a dying breed, and once they're gone, there's not going to be people to take their place. You know, most people shape off machines, you know, and they don't do the whole shoot match. You know, Jeff will shape and you know, finish shape and then glass it himself, sand it himself, color it himself. He does it. He can do the whole. He'll do the
Oh
whole thing.
wow.
Just like the
Yeah.
guys when we were young. All those guys used to do that. Rick,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of them.
Yep. Yeah.
They didn't farm out work.
Mhm.
So anyway, there's a lot of trades and a lot of crafts that you know, once our generation passes on, the skill's going to go with them. You know,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I remember years ago. I saw this tofu book, you know, Japanese tofu, and then they were having these ancient tofu masters, you know, that they would make them, you know, they would have wooden blocks, and it's an entire craft, you know, that that they did the same thing for generation after generation. And they were talking about, in this book, in the near future, these craftsmen, are going to go away, where someday you'll just buy your tofu from some mass producer and some
For sure. Oh, of course. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You buy it at Walmart.
It's kind of like the surfing industry today. And what percentage of surfboards would you say are handcrafted? Probably not very much anymore, huh?
Probably 1 out of 1,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Probably
Wow.
1 out of 1,000. Uh, yeah, there's almost nobody that I see that makes custom boards. There's one guy that I know of. No, I'll take that back. There's two guys that I know of in Oregon. One's in Portland, one's up in Lincoln City. And but that's it. And
Yeah.
there's tons of brands. There's more of these more of these pop outs. Every time I go into a shop, I see all sorts of new pop outs with all sorts of different materials coming, kind of coming from China. A lot of them come from China, and they're just super generic. And what's funny is even the pros, like the boards that go into the shops, even the upper level, like Channel Islands, the expensive Channel Islands shapes that are carried in the shops. It's funny. I saw this video, and this guy Jordy Smith, who's a South African
I know
pro,
who he is. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good, and another guy Dane Reynolds from California. They're both tremendous surfers.
Mhm.
And they didn't have their boards with them for some reason when they traveled, so they went into a local shop, and got their models off the shelf.
Oh my God.
They took them out and rode them. And I don't even know why this video got published.
Yeah.
And they're just going, these boards are dogs. They're complete dogs. And so even the so-called good boards are not, they're not that great, and that's why a lot of the surfing looks really cookie cutter, unless you're getting into the top pros, where they do have guys that shape all their boards personally.
Yeah.
But and also, one thing I've noticed is they have what they do is they want to mass produce surfboards for the masses. They're not, the business isn't interested in maximizing your ability. They just want to sell product. So what they do is there's thrusters and quads. All the boards are set up with 4 fin plugs, and then a rear plug for fins, so you can ride it either as a thruster or as a quad. But what I've learned is, after my experience with developing quad boards for myself, is that you have to have a much lower rocker for a quad than a thruster. So what these boards do is they're mediocre as a quad, and they're mediocre as a thruster, because yeah, they try to split the difference, and there's not enough rocker for the thruster, and there's too much for the quad. So it's like, but they're like, well, the average guy, they're not going to know. They're going to be stoked because they're riding the latest, brand name that they love. They identify with brands, and And that's why these pros, they took out these boards and they said they were dogs, because if they normally ride a thruster, well, they put, there's more rocker in it for them, Anyway, it's just a detail, but it's something that doesn't escape me, because I'm interested in how the industry screws people.
Yeah. And you were always good at knowing that kind of wisdom. To be honest, I'll be honest about, I didn't have a clue about surfboard design. I kind of wish back then I would take a look at that to know that I knew there are certain surfboards that kind of suited me, but
Yeah.
I didn't know why. You understood, the shape, concave, thickness, the paddling or not paddling in terms of all that. There's so many different. It's an aircraft. It's an aerospace craft for the water.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Totally.
and I, to be honest, back then had no clue. Someone a lot like you had that clue, and you were experimenting with different shapes, fin positions, fin sizes, all that. That was a part that, to be honest, I was totally ignorant of.
Well, I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was obsessed with it, and because I knew the I knew what I wanted to feel out of the board under my feet. I knew exactly how I wanted the board to go in the water. So I had to learn what enabled it, and so I would just constantly be thinking about it, and I was lucky because I always sort of had a bit of a knack for it to begin with, and I think that really helps.
Definitely.
I sort of had it just an aesthetic approach to board design and fin design, and if it looked a certain way, and it's to this day, I can look at a board and go, that board's going to work. That's going to work well.
Wow.
It's just by looking at it.
Yeah.
I don't have to ride it to know. So that's something I was born with. I was just fortunate, because it really helps in surfing, because you can advance if you know what you're riding and why it works.
I would say, for me, like, my passion for that would be meditation. I've experimented. I've done, as you probably know, almost everything in the book when it comes to looking inside. That's just my passion. I like to see what works, what doesn't work. So those the same thought process that you put in your surfing, in your understanding of how equipment works. I take the inner equipment and use that. And so it's kind of neat, how both of us kind of somewhat found our niches, because that understanding takes you, today. I mean, wouldn't you say your entire life experiences stem from the fact of all that surfing that you put in the water, all that wisdom, all that knowledge, that you gain is who you are today.
Yeah, and it's applicable to other areas of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You get an understanding of what it requires, to really develop a skill set. It takes so much dedication and focus, and there's no shortcut. There's no easy path.
Right.
But when you develop it, to me, it's I always felt like it's almost like cheating, because that's how I used to think about being in the water as a 50-year-old, 55-year-old, and still being able to to outcatch waves and outsurf young guys because of my knowledge of what I was writing, and I felt I was cheating because all they had to do was take advantage of what was available, and they could be paddling rings around me, but they're all slaves to fashion. So they're so dedicated to their brands that they're riding equipment that's not even right for them, and they don't even know it, you know. And I'm not. I should have been in, you know, in the pecking order in the lineup. I should have been relegated to the old folks home, you know, relative with my age and physicality compared to young guys. This was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They were all riding boards that were so wrong for them, and they were still content. And that's what blew my mind. It's like, wow, the industry has, and the branding is really taken over of surfers' thinking and their abilities to critically think.
Yeah, and surfers are never taught that, are they? It's always follow the crowd. Finding, you know, the latest board. How do I say it? You know, whether it's the thruster, twin fin, quad, whatever the latest is, people take that and say, well, this is what I want, without knowing, you know, the effects of what you're riding and how it will affect your performance. Or someone like you, you question, you know, why am I going to, why am I riding this board? You know, is it going to enhance my ability, or is it going to degrade my performance, you know, in the water? And don't you think, you know, good older surfers learn, because of their wisdom, they know how to how do I put this? Almost out surf the people who are just riding what is the norm for today. Would you say that? You know,
I some of them can. I mean, look at Kelly Slater. You know, the guy's, you know, he's over 50, and you know, I'm sure that's most of it is, well, of course, his physicality is physically gifted and talented, but it's his experience and his accumulation of knowledge and the application of everything he's learned, you know. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's an advantage, whatever you pursue. It's a huge advantage if you know, compile information and file it away and use it to your advantage. You know, it's critical, you know, and not follow trends, you know. Don't ignore the fashions, and do what works for you, and try to maximize what you have.
Yeah, do you think, imagine this, I don't know how many times we've wiped out and made it, you know, some heavy wipeouts and some not so heavy, but don't you think that kind of goes when we're on land? So now you probably know, you know, good things will happen to me and you laugh at it, and bad things will happen to you and you laugh at it. And you know that you're always going to come up to the surface, you know, or you know that you're going to ride a wave and you may get locked in. So you don't get attached to what happens, because good things will happen, and I say curveballs will be thrown your way.
Yeah.
But and don't you think, you know, surfing it kind of goes into your subconscious? I imagine that's how you are today. You know, I kind of gathered, you know, that from your experience, you don't get into personally things that happen to you. You kind of see them, maybe just get into your emotions for a second, and then you see what's the point. This is going to pass, right?
Well, especially today, yeah, you have to. I think it's having a sort of a detached, just like philosophical approach to life is the best way to flow through it. You
Yeah,
can't get too
really.
worked up because you can't control.
No,
Almost
right.
all you can control is what you do. You can't control anything else.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, I get frustrated and angry, but just like everybody else does. But you try to stay sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't get too worked up about anything.
Yeah, really. Yeah, yeah. But I see, but at least with that, we don't hold grudges. There are some people that I know, that, you know, 50 years ago, they still hold on to some events, that a person does or has said for 50 years. And for that other person, that was long gone.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I don't do. I don't hold grudges.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah. So let's go back to the 70s then, and
Okay.
so then let's go to, and what is that first spark, that Surfer Magazine article, that came out, they did an article, what was that, 59th Street, 50th Street? Well,
56th Street.
oh,
Yeah.
56th Street, 56th
Yeah.
Street. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but first of all, did I ever tell you the story of when your brother John and Mike Moores and I were going to go into the ranch one day? Did he ever tell you that story?
No.
We see. I was living up with Mike Moores. I spent a few months in Santa Barbara when he was going to school, or he might have been pretending to go to school up there. And I was looking to maybe go to school at the city college, and I was like, I went there and looked at through their curriculum, and I thought, who am I kidding? I'm not going to school. I hate school. So so I lived for a few months up there with Mike Moores, and this was back in I was probably 19, and somehow Mike got a hold of an Avon inflatable, and your brother was with him, and we camped at Gaviota, and this was around Christmas time, and it was real stormy, and we had the boat ready. They had that crane at the Gaviota Pier where you could lower a boat down into the water and go and get into the ranch. So that was our plan. We were going to go into the ranch, and this one morning we got up, and it was pure glass, 6 to 8 foot swell.
Oh, wow.
Nobody around, nobody coming, nobody launching, nobody. And we're just like, oh, we are scoring the ranch 6 to 8 feet. So we load up this Avon. We load up the Avon. We put it's down in the water. There's a stairway that has a stairway goes down to a landing, and then another stairway that goes down to the water. So the landing is like mid height between the water line and the top of the pier.
Mhm.
So we had the gas can on the landing, and I was going down to grab the gas can and put it in the boat, and that was like the last thing we needed. And the swell came underneath me and swept that freaking gas can off the landing, and it sucked.
Oh my God.
And we're just
Oh,
like, you gotta
oh,
be kidding me.
oh,
You gotta
oh
be kidding me.
Oh my gosh.
so so get this. Now this, I'm not proud of this, but we felt like we were so burned. We jammed down to the marina in Santa Barbara and just took a couple full gas cans out of boats. And we just walked down like we owned the boats, grabbed the gas cans full of gas, and took them. We were like, we got karma, got us. We're gonna give somebody else some bad karma. We just justified it because we got royally screwed. We get back there, they don't work. Gas cans don't work. So that was like one of the biggest ranch bummers ever.
Oh gosh.
So we never got to surf the ranch, but we did go down to surf El Capitan. And that was a silver lining because the surf was great and uncrowded. We got good waves, but I'm surprised John never told you that story.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember now. Yeah, he told me, and didn't he told me a story? Well, I think he went with Mike Morris. I don't know if you were there, but the wind came, and they almost got swept out to sea.
Yeah. That was him. Yeah, somehow. Oh, this is another stupid freaking event. The three stooges sailor. So we're somehow got the boat to run, and it's already windy. It was like, we're gonna surf the ranch. We don't care if it's windy. We don't care. I knew there'd be something at rights and lefts because it's a reef, and even in the wind, it'd probably have something. Yeah. So we're driving in with the Avon. The motor's running, and this was the next day or something, or 2 days later. And when you give the Avon gas, you have these floorboards and the bottom has to be rigid. Well, we didn't have the bolts that secured the floorboards. They had these spars that went down, like stringers that went down two sides of the floorboards.
Right.
And if you don't bolt them down, you give it gas and the thing wants to fold up like an accordion.
Oh my gosh.
We're going like 5 miles an hour, and we get to rights and lefts, and it's like, this is too crappy to even surf. So we turn around. We're going to get blown out to sea, and the wind's just like picking up, howling. Luckily, this boat comes along, fishing boat, and tows us back. And the wind's howling. It's cold as hell. We're in our wetsuits. I'll never forget. I'll never forget your brother's this image, and he's curled up in the front of the Avon, and he's got his head ducked down underneath. You know how it's got that balloon type.
Right.
Yeah, and he's got his head tucked down, and he's trying to stay warm, and he's shaking. And I'm like, this is the stupidest thing we've ever done. Yeah, I was there.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember.
Oh my God. And we were lucky this guy came along. Really lucky.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so that was they talk about ranch bummers. Those were a couple of them. It was a lot better when we could just drive in and camp, Rick.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Oh gosh.
So anyway, I surfed a lot of fun days in Santa Barbara. That was wonderful. There's some really fun spots there. There's a spot that's it's just south of El Capitan. It's a smaller point. I'm sure it's heavily surfed now. But back then, El Capitan, even back then, could get crowded, in 1972.
Yeah.
But you could just walk down to that next point, and it was a shorter point, but it was a really good wave, really good tube, and nobody bothered with it,
Oh, wow.
Surfed a lot of days at that spot. I'm sure it has some name.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I like Santa Barbara was. It's still a beautiful town, but you know it cost a
Oh yeah. Oh my
a
gosh.
billionaire to live there now.
Yeah. I remember in the first Endless Summer, they had a picture of George Greeno, El Capitan, on his kneeboard. Do you remember
Wow.
that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was in what, probably in 19 something 65 or 66 that it came out, and I remember it, and it was showing different ways that people surf. And he says, and this is George Greeno and El Capitan, and it showed him, the wave was only maybe 3 feet, but
Yeah.
it just showed him totally ripping the wave.
I
Yeah.
think it's one of the best. Well, for sure, it's one of the best waves I've ever seen. I mean, it can get as good as any place in the world. I think when it's good.
Oh
It's
wow. Huh.
yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
really it's super quality wave. And I surfed, you know, that sand spit at the harbor. The
Oh yeah,
harbor,
Sandspit. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
surfed
Uh-huh.
there.
Hmm.
Not very many guys surfed at that time. Surf Hammond's Reef. Some
Hmm.
good spots there
Oh.
in Santa Barbara.
Hmm.
Uh, in the wintertime, you know, summertime, it doesn't surf break at all, really.
Yeah.
But
Did you ever surf Ledbetter? That was like a San Onofre wave. It
yeah,
was,
yeah. I never did surf it. I saw it a
uh,
bunch. I
yeah.
saw it a bunch. There's a place right as you come into town that's a little mini point that you have to get there by you have to go nowhere to park in like this residential area and walk out through a a river
Mhm.
to get to it. So not it's I almost never see anybody surf there, but it gets good.
Oh, okay.
There's,
Uh-huh.
but I'm sure all those spots are just like super busy now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. Hmm.
So like going back to the the change, what really started to turn it around, turned surfing, uh, the commerce of surfing around in Southern California was Bob McKnight. Well, Paul Husenstam had an idea to open a retail surf oriented shop, and this sort of happened concurrently with Bob McKnight was a surfer, you know, but more of a business major at SC, and he was a couple years ahead of us in at Harbor. And his parents had money, and so he was able to go over to Australia because his idea was to start making surf trunks, you know, board shorts,
Hmm.
and selling them. And so he went to Australia because there was a popular uh, board shorts in Australia called Quicksilver, and he wanted to get the rights to them to sell in Southern California or wherever, the rest of the world maybe. And so he went over there and teamed up with Jeff Hackman, and they got the rights to sell Quicksilvers, make Quicksilvers, and sell them over here. So so Bob McKnight, this is probably in 76, something like that, 77. He invites like Lenny and Van Ornum and Paul Husenstam. I don't know if Billy Pels was there or not, but I know Lenny and myself and Van Ornum were all there, and it was a big south swell, and he took us all down to Trestles, and we all surfed lowers. You know, it was real big. And so we're on the way back, and he goes, listen, I got the rights to start. I'm going to start making sport shorts, and he goes, if you guys wear them, we'll just give them to you free. I mean, you can have us anytime you need them, if you wear them. So we're like, sure, you know,
Hmm.
nobody's giving me anything free. I'll be glad to. So we all started wearing the Quicksilvers, you know, and then they caught on, and then Quicksilver just started booming, and then Paul opened up his sports shop, across from Russell. And they started selling all sorts of Quicksilver gear. And then he started selling like Izod stuff. And, he had a lot of nice brands of clothing, but for younger people. So it really started to take off, the commercial side of it. Surfboards were kind of lagging. There were still pretty much a custom industry back then. So that took longer, but the commercial element of the clothing, the surf industry, the clothing, the fashion led the way, and the boards followed as far as becoming mass produced. So
just think, back then that they gave you, oh boy, surf trunks, where now they have sponsors. Let's say for Quicksilver, where some of them make over $1 million for being a sponsor, right?
I was sponsored.
Yeah.
with a pair of trunks. That was my sponsorship.
Yeah.
And so also around that time, I think it was 76, I was surfing 56th Street. Of course, see, 56th Street, ever since it was developed, and I think it was in 71 when we were seniors, I got wind that Lee Pope was surfing the new jetty. I was like, well, if Lee Pope's surfing there, I better take a look at it. And sure enough, it was a new jetty, but the sand built up around it really fast, and it turned into really the most consistently great wave in Newport, almost overnight. And so I started surfing there in 71, and it was a real localized crew for till the mid 70s. And then it started becoming popular. And there was a guy that started showing up. And I think this was probably in 72, he started showing up and with a camera and started taking photos. And he started shooting me quite a bit, and turned out to be like a professional surf photographer. And so I started, I think it was probably like the mid 70s, I started getting photos published in some of the surfing magazines. And it was the best wave in Newport, and the word spread, if you're a younger guy and you want to maybe try to get your photo published, then that's where you got to go to where the best waves are, So guys started showing up, good younger guys started showing up, and then they started really like accessorizing and wearing really colorful wetsuits, and then actually calling other photographers, calling them up and saying, come on down, we're all surfing at 56th Street. And so it became a real scene, and I was sort of the elder statesman there, but I wasn't going to just be pushed out, I was there first. I felt some proprietary ownership of that turf, I was still surfing at a top level up until my 30s and my early 30s, and then I lost interest in having to freaking scrap for waves all the time, because it became really crowded, and guys started. Meanwhile, Quicksilver got huge. All these other industries started developing. There was Gotcha, and God, can't even remember all of them. But all the surfers that were sponsored by these industries would show up there, and they'd surf 56th Street, and so there was all these touring, traveling pros that would surf there. So it became a real scene, a real circus, and but that was the start of it, was Bob McKnight getting, and when he showed us, when he took us down to Trestles that day, and he said, we're going to make trunk. He didn't even have a pair of trunks to show us. He had a snap, that little Quicksilver snap, in the front of the trunk, and a strip of Velcro. That's what he had to show us. He didn't even have.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
So, but I mean, it just turned into something that I'm sure even he didn't anticipate how big the industry would get in a short time.
You want to hear a funny story? It's
Sure.
back then when I worked for Charles Schwab. There's this guy named Kwok who worked in San Francisco for Schwab, and so somehow I got on the phone with him because I was working for Schwab, and I said, "Hey, you know this guy named Danny Kwok?" And he said, "Oh, Danny Kwok." He says, "He's my cousin. He's the most egotistical person I ever seen. He sent me, a photo of him and signed it."
Wow.
and he thought I would get impressed. Says, Danny. He's my cousin."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me because there was a bunch of guys. They're all about the same age, and they were all really, really hungry for attention and exposure and publicity, and they got it. They got it. But I felt like there was a big shift that guys were surfing. There was a shift in the consciousness of wanting to surf just because you loved the experience, or just to the shift to using as a means of getting exposure and becoming famous, and that really became the focus and the mindset, and it persists. I mean, it's even now today. It's off the charts. I mean, everybody wants to be a pro. I mean, as far as every young guy, that has any ability, they all want to be pros. And it's like, well, that's not really it's not the best way not the best attitude, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I remember in the 50s, when surfers would go to Hawaii, and Hawaiians, it was always kick back, relax. There's always going to be waves where, even back then, the big wave riders were bravadarials, and surf for glory, and get up, and conquer the wave. I'm going to conquer this place. And the Hawaiians, it was a whole, how do I say, soul surfing. Just it was surfing was a part of their life. They wanted to be in harmony with nature. Surfing was something sacred. It was a holy event for them, versus a professional. The wave is to be conquered. The Hawaiians knew you could never conquer. I mean, if you think you're going to conquer a wave, Mother Nature someday or the other is going to teach you a grand lesson.
Oh yeah, you bet it will.
Yeah.
Well, and that's there's nothing we could do. It's like getting worked up over it, Rick. It's like I guess the system that we have right now, the overall system, sort of just has, for the last, I don't know how many decades, maybe 60, 70 years, is sort of, there's been a slow degradation of culture. And so it was sort of inevitable that, all the things that were once sacred have been defiled, and degraded, and have deteriorated. I when I go to Hawaii, I'm like, wow, these Hawaiians, man, did they get screwed? It's like what happened to the Native Americans. I mean, it eventually gets to everybody and everything, in the Western world, There's nothing
Yeah.
that there's no limit to the exploitation, uh,
Mhm.
and until the system changes, then it's just going to continue. So it was kind of an inevitability that this was going to be the path. I remember when I was in Hawaii in '73, I was walking on the beach, and the North Shore was still country. The houses were very modest, and little beach bungalows, and I remember walking on the beach and seeing just the natural beauty, and the surf was so good, and I just thought, I just knew, I just said to myself, this place is going to just blow up. It's just going to blow up. It's going to just get, it's going to turn into Laguna Beach. It's going to be a zoo. I mean, there was a certain inevitability, and I think where we grew up in Newport Beach, in Orange County, you really saw how fast things were. The natural world was getting turned to the built environment, concrete and houses everywhere, and no stretch of coast was left alone. Nothing could be left alone in its natural state. So I think, with our experience in Southern California, growing up there, I think, to me, it gave me a sense of like, well, despair, and like a fatalistic inevitability, to the whole process. But I didn't understand guys that wanted to speed it up, like
I know.
like the guys like the guys that free ride, they're so proud of themselves and how they got pro surfing started, and they just think they're so great. And when they were trying to get that off the ground, I was thinking, why do you want to draw attention to this? We have it so good. We have this golden secret, and you want to spread it to people that otherwise wouldn't know about it or care about it. And it just blew my mind. It's like, just for trinkets, you trading
Right.
you're trading something sacred for trinkets.
Yeah.
That was always what I thought about
Yeah.
that whole program.
Yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength when it comes to trinkets, because I wrote a lot of times empty trinkets of life. Basically all the stuff that we gather. We want a Porsche, we want an Audi, we want a mansion, we want to be famous. We want, the latest drug, the latest clothes, or go to the best vacation, places in the world, and sit by the pool, sipping our martinis. I just said they're empty trinkets of life. And this is basically what Western man does, isn't it?
Agreed.
All indigenous people savages, where they know they're custodians of the land, and we say they're primitive, and yet in the West we're consumers of the land. We're going to rape it and take it. This is mine. I'm going to go to war, against you. If I want, what you have, and you won't give it to me, I'm going to fight you to the end.
Exactly. And it's like, I had this discussion with my brother-in-law, and I said, don't think a culture is backwards or primitive just because they can't fabricate a fighter jet. That's not a reflection of how advanced they are. They're advanced enough to not see any purpose in fabricating a fighter jet.
Right.
They're way more advanced than you are. You know what I mean? If that's what you think constitutes success, and I don't know, it's that sort of an attitude, it really leaves me cold.
Well, just think, we have the Gregorian calendar. And so, that calendar, you say you have August and July came from Augusto Caesar and Julio Caesar. And now they wanted to be more important than the other, so they added an extra day to the month. And this is our present day calendar system. Now, you take a look at the Mayan calendar. Their calendar is a cycle of 36,000 years. They have 30 different kinds of calendars for all different astronomical calculations for maybe when the Earth goes around the sun, or maybe when a galaxy goes around the universe. So, and you're going to tell me that these, and it's highly accurate. Scientists are kind of blown away. How did these kind of people get that kind of inner technology without any telescopes? Nothing, no scientific, rules per se, but that they had the insight to develop a calendar like that. So tell me, who's civilized? The one who gives us one extra day because it gives of ego,
Yeah, right. Well, who's really tuned?
Yeah.
Who's really connected? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That can only happen just by sort of a spiritual intuition. That's really being in tune with the natural world, is what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually even beyond that, supernatural world.
Yeah. And what I said, as built in. And that knowledge is built into every single one of us. I say we have the hardware, we have the software, and we have the operating system. Yeah. Unfortunately, Western man never turns on the computer. They don't even know the computer even exists.
Yeah. But they're trained to not turn it on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not their fault.
Right. Not exactly.
It's by design. Yeah. With our our self-proclaimed masters of the universe, they want this system operating the way it is because it works for just a very few people that are reaping all the benefits of it. So
yeah, that's true.
Too bad. Yeah, but I think it's an active program into the system to keep people separated from their inner selves, their like you said, keep them from turning on their own computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's what I try to convey in my writings, to empower people to say the apparatus is already there. You don't have to do anything externally, to connect it. All you have to do is flip the switch. That's how simple it is. Flip the switch.
Yeah. But people are, and people that want something more will do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
They're not satisfied with the explanations they get from the mainstream and the education system, the answers and the explanations they get. Mm-hmm. For people that don't find those explanations satisfactory, I was one of them. I'm not satisfied by what you're telling me. I don't believe what you're telling me. For those people, those are the ones that will flip the switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have a feeling you have to want to, Rick. You have to want to. You can't. Nobody's going to do it for you, or there's not going to be some magical awakening. You really have to desire the to turn that on yourself.
And ever since I've known you, you've had that switch has been flipped on.
Well,
So
same with you and your brother. You know, you
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
always
yeah.
been
Oh,
that
yeah, oh,
way.
yeah, oh, definitely. That's
Yeah.
why I think we can have such deep discussions. Otherwise, this interview, our conversation, would have been ended a long time ago. Hi, Nick. How you doing? What's up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good hearing from you.
Hey, Rick, how about them Chiefs? Right. How about them Chiefs, man?
But
Anyway,
don't you think
go ahead.
that it's kind of a miracle, isn't it? And especially with all this going on in this world, somehow, without us, how do I put this? We knew that there was a better way to live from day one. I call that, whether call it grace, call it mercy, call it, somehow our thinking was outside the box. Don't you think
Yeah.
your thinking was always outside the box?
I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
explain it. It's
yeah,
just it was.
yeah,
I feel fortunate. I feel
yeah. Oh,
fortunate.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
all I can say is it wasn't an active choice. It was just a
Mhm.
mindset
Yeah.
that was always there. So
Mhm.
anyway, well, this has been about an hour. I think we had a
Yep.
really good talk today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Likewise. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and yeah, if we can think of some other stuff to come up with, I'm always interested in speaking with you, Rick.
Okay. Yeah.
Say hello to your brother and your wife, and
Yeah. 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 I will. Yeah.
because I've I had to remember to relay that story, the boat story,
Oh, yeah.
your brother.
Yeah. John always watches these the next day. I
Oh,
so he always gets a big kick, out of seeing
good.
these.
Well, a big hello to John. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
all
All right.
right,
Well, and say hi to your wife. Yeah.
I will. Good talking with you, Rick,
Okay, Nick.
and go Chiefs.
Yeah. Go Chiefs. Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Okay. By the way, how they're doing this year?
Oh, they're doing good.
Are they?
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
I thought that information would just
Yeah.
permeate your consciousness because everybody talks about it probably in Kansas
Yeah.
City.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote a book on the Chiefs and the Super Bowl. I don't know, and basically it was I might have told you about it before. But if you can improve just one small percentage point in any sport, especially football, you can that just that 1% can give you a total heads up in winning games. So I gave them a whole set of clues, tips, whether everything from using like sport injury medicine, using acupuncture, using different types of therapy, using like cold water, you're using meditation, using the audience as a driving force, because the audience, there's a collective, consciousness
No
of people
question.
in the stadium.
Yeah.
Synchronicity, if you can't teach synchronicity, but you can actually train for synchronicity. Even the concept of synchronicity for a football team that embraces that and consciously. So when you have a play, imagine having a play and they're all synchronized with one another. They automatically can sense where the other person is.
Mm-hmm.
So the quarterback can sense this guy is open and he can throw the ball, and the receiver can then catch that ball because they're in sync. The more you put your mind into thinking in football, the worse it gets. I'm sure you probably learned that playing tennis, right? If you get into your mind playing tennis, you're not going to play very good.
It's in any physical
Mm-hmm.
sport that you pursue. It's in all of them. It's
Yeah. Yep.
you
Yep.
know
Mhm.
you want to be intuitive. The more intuitive you are, the better you perform.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got some other stories. Well, that'll be it for another day.
Yeah. Another day. Yeah. Exactly. All
Anyway,
right.
it's great talking with you, Rick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Likewise. Yeah. That's good conversation. Yeah. All
Yeah. Take care.
right. Say hi to Ann.
I will.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye.
Bye bye.